That's a bit noisy. Let's play this. I like this version. See what you think.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I like that version. Good evening and welcome to the news. And a very good morning to you, Scarlett. I'm not sure if you heard that version of the anthem. I like that one. I can't remember. That's my video from my channel that I played. I can't remember who the singer was, but beautiful version of the song. Yeah, it's our choice and have people decide what they like and don't like. But I do like it. It's not the traditional one, but it's very powerful and moving. Big day today? No, it's just another day. But the day does have consequences, for sure. I did read this morning that they're actually caging in the White House with unclimbable fences, but they're unclimbable on both sides. And I did sound a little bit funny there, but yeah, is it to keep people out or to keep him in? It could have been because I had my other phone playing it next to my phone I'm broadcasting, Scarlett. Sorry about that. There'll be certain states in America where there will be a show of violence, no doubt. But I don't think it'll be as much as people think. There will be, don't get me wrong, and it could be nasty. Yeah, it was a different version. I think it'll be in little hot spots, Scarlett. Logic tells me that will be the case. I think there could be some conflict at polling booths in the northern states. I hope not. But I think I said last night, I think that there is plenty of liaison between federal, state, local police, and even the Pentagon. I'm pretty sure there are many, many National Guard units on standby as we speak. We're not allowed to wear political clothing. Well, no Australian would ever wear political clothing. Sometimes you'll go to a polling booth in Australia and you'll see a small group of people wearing, if it was in America, they'd be wearing a red t-shirt saying vote John, or a blue t-shirt saying vote Sally. But the public don't wear anything like that at all. And you know, the one thing that I've known all my life is you'll stand in line to cast your vote, be it on a state or a federal stage at a polling booth, and everyone talks to each other, but not about politics. They'll say, here you go, yeah, good. Drum up a conversation about fishing, cooking, never about why you're standing in line. You can do what you like. There's nothing stopping Australians to dress up in whatever political thing. They just can't be bothered. Because we really do elect people to work for us. That's the big difference between Americans and Australians. When we elect somebody, we've just employed them, and that's how we think about it. So there's a huge difference. There is no wave of compassion, love, care for whoever the political person is you want to vote for. You go, yeah, I'll give him a go. If he doesn't come good, we'll sack him. See, today is about, in the US, the American people. It's about their choice and their rights to cast that vote to either sack somebody or employ somebody. And I think that a lot of Americans have lost that thought process, that to agree to disagree. It's been probably the last 15 or 20 years in America where it's become very partisan on every level, media, people talking to each other. And that's very sad because you've only got one America. You should learn to disagree and agree to disagree based on the fact that you're making your vote count. That's it. That's the most important thing for me, watching what I'm watching over the last couple of decades, Scarlett, is that I have had this terrible feeling for the last probably 3 major elections in the US that democracy is dying. Whether people say, oh, but we're a republic. Yes, you are. But you work under a democratic system. And it seems to become too partisan, too left-wing, too right-wing, and That's not good, because people take it personally against each other in the US and they fight in the streets over it. Look, I would guarantee there'll be fights in polling lines, with people voicing their opinion and maybe trying to influence other people. And that, we don't do that here. But as long as they vote, it's the people of America that get to decide, not the candidates. That's not how it works. It's a beautiful system where an average man or woman, low income or really rich, can walk in line, vote the way they feel. And when that's lost, you then become an authoritarian state, country, and that's very sad. We know those countries. We don't need to look too far at what those countries look like. Hello, Jojo. Look at countries that... I don't hate Russia. I don't hate China. I feel sorry for the people living under that autocratic authority. I really do. We had an interesting thing happen today here. That is the wine industry, among other things that China are doing to Australia. Apparently, they never phoned any of the wine importers in China, but they went round to their places, apparently, and said, don't buy any more Australian wine. Of course, the envoys are denying that's happened, but all the orders have stopped. So, yeah, you can, like I say, you can leave us so much economically, but Australians, to a man, still want to investigate the whereabouts and the starting and how it happened of the virus. We were the first to put our nose forward and say to China, we need to know. And we're the first to cop the importation, tariffs, bans, you name it. But every Australian will just say, well, okay, if that's how you want to play it. Hello, Ivy. But I'm sure most Americans are having a very good... Look, I think, and this is my view on what I see and how people are so confused in the US, is there's probably 5% of the people standing in line heading towards to vote who don't know who they're going to vote for. I truly mean that. I think they're so confused with conflicting information that they're walking into the polling booth thinking, what do I do? Which, again, sad. If you can't look at the performance of an incumbent over 4 years and then do an analysis and judge how that performance has gone. Look, the oldest political talk in the world is very simple. You stand next to a person and say, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? It's always been asked of people, and it's the most fundamental question that will give you the answer to who you'll vote for. Well, Scarlett, I think some people only get their information off channels like CNBC or just off Fox News. Any associated media, and a lot of you are old enough to know what I'm talking about, that are owned by Rupert Murdoch, are all right-wing puppet media. They'll just say the same thing over and over again. You know, if the incumbent president went out and shot 8 people, and it's confirmed that 8 people were shot, on Fox News it would say, some people have been injured. They would twist it, and the left wing would do the same. But the thing about left-wing or right-wing media is that you have a mind of your own. You can discern. If you can't, well, you're a bunny. You'll go with the flow. But there's a lot of media around the world controlled by just a few people. And that means that you're going to get a... Look, they employ people that are right-wing for Murdoch. Give you the biggest difference. We've got a station in Australia called Sky News Australia, owned by Murdoch, that is all severely right-wing. I mean severely, more than your US. But hardly anyone watches it because it's on cable. But it's as right-wing as you could possibly imagine. We've probably got the best national television and radio service, just called the ABC, Australian Broadcast Commission, which are fair and biased. They're not biased at all. They'll bang left and right wing politicians all the time. So they're right down the middle. They take it on the daily basis of what's being said is not that important as to what's being done. No, not Sky Australia. Even you, if you were sitting here and you're watching Sky News Australia in Australia, Scarlett, you'd say, oh my goodness, it's far right. You know what I mean? I mean, really far right. But that's the same around the world. There are those far right institutions. But like I said, you can look at left-wing media, look at right-wing media, but if that's all you're doing, you have to understand that is an indoctrination in itself. If you only watched Fox News in America, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, Scarlett, is you would be implemented in your mind that everything that you see on that channel is true. And media is never true. Well, I think it will be an enormous win, Jojo, but that's just my opinion. What would I know? I'm just an Australian living on an ant's nest in the far end of the earth. What do Americans call Australia? Oh, the arse end of the earth. Really? Okay. But you don't need fair and balanced media. You just need a fair and balanced thought process. I see some of the weirdest states flipping, Jojo. I won't mention them. They'll get angry with me, but I see some very strange flips. One thing that I think all the media have missed is that in 4 years that have passed, there's been another 18 million Americans become eligible to vote. And they're angry. We all remember when we were 18, 19, 20, you know what I mean? So they've grown up through this period, and they are going to have a major influence. I would never say the country's behind Biden, because I can't speak for the country. I can speak for myself, Scarlett. So I don't think that's a balanced statement at all. You're welcome to vote for him and support him, but you can't say that your country is behind because you don't have any information until tomorrow, maybe. I can't look at that at the moment, Jojo, sorry. See, the electoral vote, the college vote, is weird. Yeah, I'll look at it later. It's weird because if you and Scarlett and me were in a small town and there was 300 people, and I was up for election up against Scarlett, and I got 165 votes and Scarlett got 135. But in a weird system in the village, they work on little districts in the village of 5 and 10 people, and they're called electoral college votes, and Scarlett wins. It's silly. You understand what I'm saying? Truth is about America right now, and for the last 6 elections, without doubt. I think there was one that was an exception. But in the last 6 elections, they would have all been Democratic presidents. Didn't turn out that way. Yeah, I don't think, like I say, it's not going to change. Like gerrymandering that goes on all the time. You know, you get a district where, oh, if we only had the other district in there, we would definitely have a red vote in there for sure. And they do that. But both sides do that. So it's not a case of it's just Republicans that do that. Democrats have done that as well. So it's like you can manipulate the system to get the outcome you want, which is neither fair or balanced. But the beauty, I think, what is it? Nearly 100 million already voted before today. I think you'll get well, let's be honest, you'll probably get another 80 to 100 million votes minimum coming in today. And what is it with America? You have an election on a Tuesday. What is the point of that? Even though most people are probably out working, normally they have to stop work to go and vote. Why not have it on a Saturday? I mean, I'm just putting forward a logical suggestion. Well, California in its own right, I think it's still the same. It's the third most powerful economy in the world. Vote often. Vote twice, Leroy. I think, like I say, I've never seen how a political party has changed as much as the Republican Party. It's not the... Look, this is a statement that you can either argue with or agree with. The Republican Party is not in the White House, if you get my meaning. The fundamental values of the Republican Party are not represented by the people that run the White House. I think probably the most interesting period will be the next 6 months, in the fact that, well, I can tell you categorically, Joe Biden has no outstanding court cases that he will have to face. Currently, Mr. Trump has 17. Some are criminal. And when we talk about, that's one side of things. And then, of course, there is no impediment of following through on things like his tax or his maybe deductions that have been sort of managed to maybe not let him pay as much tax. I think the worst thing like that I've seen, because I've followed politics in the US for a long time, and that is that either the Republican Party had to change anyway, but this change is drastic, and it's not, I don't think, that many true Republican supporters over the years can now fathom. He's saving your country. Well, I disagree, but we're allowed to do that. But I can guarantee you that your current leader, and it's not just Australia, he's not welcome here at all. I don't think he's welcome in Canada, the UK, certainly not welcome in the United Nations, because all they do is laugh at him. No, you won't get an argument out of me, because everyone's entitled to follow through with their thoughts, and the process of voting is for you to decide. But because American politics affects my country, I have every entitlement to talk about it. No, I do. I understand. Look, the flaws of the Democratic Party are deep and long and split in many areas, like, believe me, I understand that. But the division within your country, I remember as a child, a long time ago, is the same as it was in the 1960s. I've never seen such division in your country that's unfolded over the last 4 years, that it replicates what was going on in the 1960s. You see, thank you, Scarlett, because what I'm about to say sort of says what you're saying, is that because I'm on the outside and looking in, and I'll be honest with you, not many Americans take any interest of any subject of any other country's politics because they don't affect you. The perspective of me and Canadians and everyone in Europe and England, your decision on who you do vote in does affect us on many levels. So we get to look outside. We don't get to vote, which is a good thing, because there wouldn't be a Republican Party if Australia voted. No, see, that's just petty though, Lake. If I was standing in line and you called me horrible names, I'd say, I don't care. Do what you like. Name calling, sticks and stones, shadow. But the point being is that there is a very narrow thought process of many Americans about other countries' politics. They can't be bothered. No, you can't say that, Scarlett. The left is responsible and supports the looting. That would be a statement that is untrue. There are bullheads everywhere of any political disposition. See, that's where I always see Monchichi, where people go down the path of labelling parties and people to communism, socialism. It's like, why would you do that? Joe Biden is not a communist. It probably is part of being a socialist, for sure. But it's like saying, I'm going to call the blue wave communism, which is strange because communism is always associated with the colour red. Oh, that's the same colour as the Republicans. I've heard 3 or 4 speeches from Joe Biden. He has no intention of defunding the police. He has an expansion policy where he'll have psychologists as negotiators to limit the conflict between police and the subject, which I think is a great idea. Look, this is what's happened, like, for me. Again, I'm an outsider looking in. The Democrats have gone further left, but the Republican Party has gone extreme right. So it's yin and yang. Do you remember when Ralph Nader stuck his nose in? He probably won the election for the incumbent at the time. But I don't see any third parties this time. I'm sure there are a couple smaller ones. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's no major ones. There's no Kanye West, for starters. But it's probably the least I've ever heard of not having any sort of third party take 4 or 5%. No, I don't know that, Monchichi. Please provide me the information of how America will become the CCP. Are you all going to start eating rice? No, I understand independence. Don't get me wrong, Scarlett. I'm talking about main figure. There are independents everywhere. But I'm talking about a main figure being like a third party, like a Ralph Nader. You know what I'm saying. I disagree with you, Lake. I think it's the absolute opposite. A lot of your jobs have gone offshore. There have been tax incentives for major companies to actually produce offshore. I do like one of the things I read in regards to Biden as far as manufacturing in the US. If you're a company and go overseas, he's going to hit you with a 10% tariff. But if you're in America producing for America, he'll give you a 10% tax cut. That's a good idea. Yeah, but they're opinions, Monchichi, and I'm not dismissing you. You live there, you see what's going on. But trust me, if anything looks like Russia, it's your incumbent. I mean, I'll give you something that I've well known for a long time. There's been no election in the US, as far as I can remember, and I'm over 60, there's been no election in the US that can categorically say on the election day they can pick a winner. They can indicate a winner. So all this nonsense about as soon as the date's finished, we don't count those votes, and the suppression in Texas and suppression in Pennsylvania regarding these late votes is simply because a lot of those late votes would be Democratic votes. So you see what I'm saying? I don't hear of any part of the Democratic Party complaining about late votes. I do hear about millions of lawyers being sent, particularly to the Rust Belt as we speak, to challenge the fact that they should not count after midnight on election day. And yet, America has been doing that for so long. Some states will count for 2 weeks, some states will count for 7 days. So it's not new. It's not like all of a sudden, well, they're cheating because they're counting votes after midnight. That's silly, because that's not how it's been done for decades, hundreds of years in America. Imagine in the 1800s, they would have probably been bringing in votes on Cobb and Co, and the votes would be counted in a month. Probably what I'm saying about this thing is that the voting system in America needs to be standardised, whatever it is. I know each state has its authority to do what it likes, but when it comes to a federal election, it should be a standardised process, whatever that is. I think there's a clause for military votes that they can be counted up to 6 months. Apparently, that might have been due to the Civil War a long time ago, but apparently because they're away. In Australia, when you go into a polling booth, it's very simple. You need either a national ID card or you need a driver's licence. And they will check your address. And sometimes they say, have you got an electricity bill that tells me you're at that address? So they can question you, but normally it's driver's licence. They put a line through your name, give you the ballot, and you vote. I'm not sure how early they can vote. I think it's a fair time before, though. But if you look at where we are in the world at the moment, the world is looking at the US, hoping that the country can be united. Because in these last 4 years, the division is staggering. 6 months before, yeah, I knew it was something like that. And so they should. Do you think illegals should vote in our election? No, if they're not a US citizen, they shouldn't vote. I don't think that's true, Scarlett. You can't vote in the US unless you're a US citizen, believe me. I know that much. Just because you creeped over the border with a donkey and a packet of peanuts, you say, I'd like to vote in the next election, but no, it doesn't happen that way at all. Maybe you're talking about them applying for citizenship. Well, even during that process, they shouldn't vote. No, we've never taken advantage of you, Blake. I'm from Australia. We've never taken advantage of the US. In fact, every time the US has gone to war, we've supported you. Well, I wouldn't agree with anyone who's not a citizen of the country voting. I'm pretty straight down the line. Well, that should be challenged. I have no problem with that at all. I don't think, like I say, I think some of the things that I've watched in trade over the last 20 years, we've all made the mistake of selling out to China because it's cheaper. You get a cheap, like televisions. Here's the best example for all of you. Can you remember when you bought your first television or colour telly in the late 80s? Well, mine was only a 24-inch screen and it cost $1,200. I can now buy a 65-inch screen for about $390. Why? Because it's not made here. It's made in mass production in China. No, the thing about fraud in voting, Scarlett, there is no history in America of large-scale fraud, either in absentee voting, mail voting. Is there going to be some? Probably, but the percentage is so low. If you're clutching at straws to try and win an election based on the fact that you send in lawyers, you're obviously in a defensive position already, aren't you? Mail-in voting has been found lots of fraud. No, that's not true at all. Mind you, the President of the United States mailed in his ballot. I think his First Lady actually votes in person. Very strange. Yeah, I think the question has to be asked, Leroy, and we'll put it to the panel here. Why do you think Russia and North Korea want to have Donald Trump elected? Think about it for a second. Don't rush your answer. I can see it easily because he is an ineffectual leader that bends and twists to their desire. That's my opinion. So Donald Trump is the only president that has done what he promised to do when he was running, like in late 2016 when he said within 4 weeks, Lake Shadow, he will have a new healthcare plan for America. He will have the wall built between Mexico and America completed in his first term. Are these the things that you're saying that he's the only president who has promised to do what he's done? Or did I not see something contrary to that? Can you dispute Trump negotiating peace in the Middle East? No, the Middle East was always coming together because it had to. He is the most ineffectual diplomat you can... Look, he's not even been involved in a lot of these things. It's been instigated by other people. I don't mind you supporting him, but don't support the facts that he hasn't done. Yes, and that one, of course, was the most famous. He's promised to do what he was doing when he was running, like, I shall release my taxes in a few weeks. Yes, I think you should vote for Sacha Baron Cohen would be a great idea. You don't need my approval. You can support him as strongly as you wish to, Shadow. That's not why I'm talking to you. We're voicing our opinions. And when you can agree or disagree, that's fine. There will be no argument. It'll be a difference of opinion. And that's how America used to be, Lake. That you could have both people argue blue in the face, but they have an agreement to disagree. I don't think there's been much need to defame him, Monchichi, at all. Think about it. You have a president that's been bankrupt many times. You have a president that put forward some crazy plans like Trump University. I mean, I could go on for hours talking about the failures in business that he's done. And you would just argue back saying, no, that's not true, but they are true. He's the only president at the moment ever who was impeached to run for office again. That's never happened before. He's the only president who currently has 17 law cases against him, civil, not talking about the other ones to do with tax and etc. But there are 17 law cases against him. He's the only president that on every marriage he's ever been, he's cheated. He's the only president. I could go on. I'm not going to go on. I wouldn't. If I had a factory and I needed someone to sweep the floor, I wouldn't employ him. Well, I think eventually, like I say, he has no protection. When he's voted out of office, and I did use the word when, tomorrow, is that you can see the wheels of justice turning on many levels. And I think you'll find you people will be very surprised in the outcome of some of those court cases. Like I say, I wouldn't care whether it was a Democratic president or a Republican president. I don't care. I do care that this is a madman running your country based on his ego and narcissism. He does not care about anyone. 230,000 dead Americans, ladies and gentlemen, will not be voting tomorrow. I think he's a madman. I really do. Narcissism can lead you down the path of total ego, where anything I say and do is right. Doesn't matter what other people think or whether it's legal. Are you saying, Bonchichi, that Trump created the virus? I don't believe that at all. I don't think he's that clever. Blake, you're entitled to your opinion. I totally disagree with what you said, but I say it again. You can speak your mind. We have a democratic hangout where anyone can say whatever they like, as long as it's not offensive or, derogatory. We won't tolerate that. Scarlett would remove them straight away. Like if someone came in here and said, "Siege, you're evil and you need to be removed from the planet," Scarlett would remove them. Oh look, Scarlett, he closed the flights from China. Bravo. Well, he let the rest of the people from Europe come in. And the facts are that CDC, even Fauci and a few others say the actual virus probably came in first from Europe. Do you know what we did in Australia before you? We closed flights in from everywhere. Well, do you know what, Scarlett? Probably in about 3 months, you will see Dr. Fauci leading a concerted effort under the Democratic president to try and save many people's lives in your country. Fauci will not be arrested. Mind you, someone else might be arrested. Oh, big statement. Fauci is going to be arrested for crimes against humanity. So this is the guy that's telling everyone to social distance, do tracing, wear a mask. He's going to be arrested for that. If that was the case, every leader in this country would be arrested. Can't you see in what you say that your divisions are so severe? All of you that think the opposition is evil, nasty, should be arrested, you have no thought process to discern what you're saying. You're just using this as a leverage to say how bad they are. I have to remind you, these people are your fellow Americans. I don't know why Leroy Fauci would be arrested. I can see him getting the Presidential Medal again, probably in a couple of years. There's an old saying my grandfather used to say, if what you're doing now is not working, stop doing it. 1,000 Americans dying a day needs to be stopped. I would just about predict that a date will be given by the new president on when you will have to restrict your movement for 4 weeks. You will have to wear a mandatory mask whilst out. You'll only be allowed to work if it's an essential business to make the country run. And in 4 weeks, you will see a difference. And then it will be all opened up in stages. All right, Scarlett, I'll play this game with you. What's 1% of 350 million Americans? See if you can put it in text. Marcy, I think more so not a loser, but dangerous. And I've said for many months the most dangerous period is the transition from this president to the next one. There's a long time between November 3rd and the 21st of January. And the thing about scientists, they have done their utmost to understand this virus. And have they made mistakes? Probably. They've fine-tuned some of the chemicals that are being induced into people of certain ages and whatever. But to give you an idea how serious this is, Scarlett, where people ignore the issue. Let's forget about the 1,000 people that died. Let's talk about, in the last 7 days, 61,000 American children contracted the virus. We all live for a purpose as we get older. It's to care for our kids and our grandkids. Yes, I think so, Jojo. It is an eviction process. See, if all what you and Monchichi are saying was true, and you could bring a lawyer into the process and give them the evidence, they would be in prison easily. But all be over soon. On November the 4th, I will be doing a meditation video for those that are lost in their thought process, devastated by the result. I will be playing 24 hours of meditation, and every now and then I'll be injecting my words saying, it's okay, it's all over now. I don't know whether you understood what I said earlier, Scarlett and Monchichi. Your infliction of anger and accusations about people divides you from your fellow Americans. You must, hello Buttercup, you must make your own decision and go with that, but not just bring up like falsehoods and say they're facts. Because if someone like Dr. Fauci had been involved in making the virus and making money out of it with Bill Gates, he would be in prison because the facts would have been presented. I think they've done in Canada, they did it in Australia, they've done it in Europe and they've done it in the UK, is that if you were an American, and we're not, would you vote for Biden or Trump? Australia was 94%, I think Canada was about 95%, Europe was about 90%, and I think the UK was about 88% that would have all voted for Biden. The world does not want your current president. But we don't get to vote. But I will be running that 24-hour meditation to ease your mind. One thing that's very clear, and you would all agree with this, probably in the last 4 years, the statements and accusations from both parties is so partisan. There's not any leeway for negotiation. It's yes or no. And that's destructive for a country. I know you will vote with your heart, Scarlett. And that's what everyone should do. No, you misunderstand, Lake. He's not the president of the world, but the influence that America has around the world affects every country. So your statement, no, I'm not meddling at all. I will not stay out of the conversation, Lake, because what happens in the US and who gets elected affects my country. So I'm entitled to my opinion. I'm not from another planet, Monchichi and Lake and Scarlett. I'm from this planet. Like I say, if anyone comes in here and says, I'm going to vote for Trump, I say, good on you. You made your mind up. Excellent. If someone comes in and says, I'm voting for Biden, I say, good on you. You've made your mind up. I'm not here to change people's minds. I'll reiterate, I wouldn't care if it was a Democratic president or a Republican president, but one that didn't bring the country into turmoil and division. I don't want that one. Yep. And let's be honest. Every war that has faced this planet for a very long time, if an American soldier turned to his left, he'd see an Australian soldier. What sort of commitment is that? And that's how everyone should vote, like. In your heart and your mind, if you think you're voting for the person that is best for your country, you've made the right decision, based on your opinion. Why doesn't Australia do what's best for America? You're losing me, Monchichi. Every conflict on this planet, we've been at your side. Why are you bringing our alliance with America up as a question? There is no question. If America went to war with China tomorrow, guess who would be standing at your side, Monchichi? Give you an idea how committed, just in the First World War and the Second World War, you've got to remember Australia didn't have a lot of population at these times. But we in Australia from 1918 and after 1945, we had nearly 3 women for every man, because those men didn't come home. Again, we didn't have a big population, but we stood up when it needed to be counted. In fact, in the Second World War, we stood up in 1939, not 1942. We just don't do what you Americans do. If we elect a Prime Minister because we think he does the best job, but if we think he's turned sour and certainly not looking after the interests of Australians, we won't have any question. We will vote him out, even if we supported him to vote him in. I think there was a book written a long time ago in America, but I'm trying to think of the name of the author. It worked along the lines that Americans, since the late 50s in particular, have treated their president, no matter who it is, as a king. That's the thought process. That's not the practicalities, of course. But that I get to understand then is why people say, I love my president, I support my president, regardless of who he is. It's not like America's got a royal family. Probably the closest America got to the royal family, and you may disagree with me, was the Kennedys. There's not been sort of a royalist type family politician lead America since. Well, yes, of course, there is that, Leroy, that he's the only incumbent president that says he will not accept. It's not that he hasn't agreed, he will not accept the outcome unless he wins. That's where you're wrong, Monchichi. He's done the worst thing in the last 50 years. He's started conflict in his own country. That sounds like a Trump statement. I know you did it by just mistyping, Monchichi, but you say, we fought a revaluation to tell royals to fuck off. You meant a revolution. But revaluation sounds a very Trump statement. We've revalued our alliance with the UK and we've decided to drop them as a business decision. I know you didn't mean revaluation, trust me. No, Scarlett, he won't accept that the American people reject him. The thing is, when people use these words about Donald Trump, saying he's a narcissistic, egotistic person, do you know who said that as well? Donald Trump. Apparently, Leroy, that's how it works under an autocratic leader. Well, like, you have to understand the wheels of power. When he was impeached, do you know the reason why he didn't get impeached? Pretty simple. Why didn't Donald Trump get impeached? You needed 2/3 of the Senate to agree. Okay. So that didn't happen. Didn't mean he wasn't guilty. No, there were grounds for impeachment, Scarlett. Categorically. You can't be impeached, though, unless 2/3 of the Senate agree, which means both houses have to come together. Didn't happen. It's like I think Amy, elected to the Supreme Court, seems like a nice lady, don't get me wrong. She's got all the qualifications. And she's probably the right person for the right job, even though her persuasion may be a little bit to the right. That's a regardless for me. But you only have to go back and listen to the Republicans at the time who said during this presidency there will be no appointment to the Supreme Court. And Lindsey Graham famously said, "Use my words against me." Was he the only one? No. Nearly all of them said, no, that's not going to happen. I think Wales, Buttercup, went into lockdown before Boris announced all of England was going into lockdown. But to give you some hope, I want you to Google Victoria, a state in Australia. And for about 13 or 14 weeks, they've been in lockdown at certain stages. They had at one stage over 700 cases a day. And you might think it's draconian and losing your liberties, whatever, but only essential workers were allowed to work in Victoria. Everyone had to have a mask, mandated. Didn't have a mask, you get fined, large sum of money. And now there's been 4 days with 0 infection. From 700 to 0, following the guidelines of social distancing, only essential workers, masks. Those that had to stop working have been paid by the government. And it works. Google Victoria. The masks are nonsense. Well, both you and I totally disagree on that. Google Victoria, Buttercup. Mandatory mask wearing. 0 cases now for the last 4 days. No, that's not true. At one stage, he didn't think the mask would be effective. That's true, what Fauci said, but ever since he said, wear a mask. But Google, just humour me, all of you. Google Victoria, Australia, COVID-19. You'll see the graphs. You'll see when mandatory mask wearing came in, restriction of movements, only essential workers, and everyone that didn't work got paid. No, many scientists don't agree that masks are useless, Buttercup. That's just a statement, but not a fact. You will see. Even in the UK and Europe, there'll be mandatory masks issued. And I'm sure if people walk down the UK and say, I'm not wearing a mask, and they get fined £1,000, they're probably going to be wearing a mask tomorrow. I don't know that statement either, Buttercup. I'm not arguing with you. Well, many scientists say it is fact. It's like Donald Trump saying, I've heard many people say, I believe many people think. See, Scarlett, the difference in logic and your possibly loss of liberty and freedom is a conflict with you. Google Victoria. Australia, COVID response. Look at the facts. Look at the data, the scientific data. Facts. For the last 4 days in Victoria, 0 cases. And your thoughts on the process, Scarlett, if you've Googled it? What do you think about the process that they did in Victoria, Australia? Going down from 700 cases a day to 0. No, I don't believe that statement at all. It's not, when you say that, Scarlett, it's like an impediment of your liberty and freedom. You know the biggest impediment of your liberty and freedom is dying from the virus. Yep. The reason why they had a spike, they didn't handle a certain quarantine hotel. And they got out of hand real fast. But the point being is, look at the response, Scarlett. Mandatory mask wearing, only essential workers. Those workers who couldn't work were paid by the government. So no one was out of pocket. Was it frustrating and annoying and screaming and shouting going on between husbands and wives? Probably. But today's last 4 days in Victoria, 0 cases. Well, no, that's not true. Buttercup. I assure you that 230,000 dead Americans due to the virus, there's not been 230,000 suicides. Loss of income hasn't occurred in Australia. They get paid if they're told not to work. No problem, Scarlett. If you think that was appropriate to do, it's entirely your right. Well, no one got COVID, probably because no one had COVID. Well, the last thing I would do, if I thought I might have the virus, is have any contact with my family at all. And the things that people get confused about, you wearing a mask is not to protect you. It's to protect everyone around you. That's how you need to think about it. But you can all put up your points of conjecture and accuse Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci and how left are causing all these problems and this is why the world is what it is. You need to remind yourselves in the US that for the last 4 years, Joe Biden hasn't been running the country. That's not true, Buttercup. Go to Victoria, Google COVID response. See what happened? Follow the dots of scientific proven data and then come to the conclusion that the last 4 days in Victoria there's been 0 virus cases. And everyone's had to have mandatory mask wearing. Sort of shoots your theory down in flames. Because what they did here, they did in Vietnam. They did in South Korea. I don't believe that statement at all, Buttercup. I've done research, sees most wear the mask, do nothing. Well, mandatory mask wearing in Victoria has brought the transmission rate down to 0. That's a fact. That's why I'm saying do your research there. Australians are like English people and Welsh people and Scottish people. Same mannerisms, same anger, same happiness. Very similar. And yet we wore masks. We stayed home when we had to, and we have 0 cases. There's an American saying, go figure. And I said to you guys 3 or 4 months ago. It is staggering. Winter's just finished. As you know, we're just coming into late spring and early summer. We don't have any flu cases. Why? Everyone is following social distancing now, even when there is no virus. It's the new norm. Stand your distance, use sanitizer. Do you know how many masks a surgeon wears when he's operating? Can be operating up to 12 hours, 15 hours sometimes. Very long operations. Do you know how many masks a surgeon wears? 2. Dentists wear masks. A vet will wear a mask. If you don't want to have babies, Joe just pointed this out before. If you don't want to have babies, you wear a condom. Now, if you're going to tell me that condoms are ineffective and people still get pregnant, yeah, that's true on very small amounts because the thing breaks, let's be honest. Well, Leroy, I said many years ago, Georgia Guidestones. Everyone in this room knows about them. 500,000 people, that's the target. But when they actually first did that, there was about 4 billion people on the planet. Now there's 8. How's that working out for them, Leroy? The biggest infection that humans get is bacterial. Viruses are everywhere, don't get me wrong. But it's bacterial infection that most people get, i.e. sepsis. You get a wound, you get infection. Well, if they're culling scarlet, they've failed miserably. Well, you have no power without people to power over, Buttercup. Which is fact. No, you can't be Pharaoh without pyramid builders. Anyway, like I say, the discussion in regards to who people vote for is not for me to persuade you either way. I'm happy forever who you vote for. Why you vote is what you've got to question for yourself. Look, Australians do not live under fear at all, Scarlett, from anyone. I seriously, and this is a fact, have had a beer with the Prime Minister, and he was a good bloke. And I've also told another Prime Minister to fuck off to their face. I didn't get arrested. I actually had one of the security guys wink at me and smile. We have so many things on this planet, Jojo, that want to kill us. More so if you come to Australia. The animals and the insects, they all want to kill you. But on the planet in general, we can die in so many terrible ways. If I was an alien in the land, I thought, I'm not staying here. It's too dangerous. Well, I've had a discussion with you before, Buttercup. The story of old money still rings true today. You've got new money, you've got Jeff Bezos and all those type of people, Facebook, etc. But they're relatively a small amount compared to the old money on the planet. And does money talk? You betcha. Sure does. There's no evidence that AIDS was introduced. It's scientifically researched, Buttercup, that eating monkeys is not a good thing. And apparently that's where it started. Every scientific paper I've read doesn't disagree with what I just said. There is no evidence of it being ever produced in a lab. It's been studied in a lab. But apparently, just like in China, where all these viruses come from recently, they eat strange animals. They don't store them in a good condition like they just throw it on a table for a couple of days. And then they eat it. Yeah, bats have actually had a bad history, Monchichi, as far as viruses, because they're an intermediary, which means that a bat could bite a animal, have the virus, and then a bat could bite Monchichi, give him the virus. They have a very good mechanism of transfer. And then, of course, people eat bats. That's the truth, mate. The fact is that people could say whatever they want to about where it come from. It's the consequences of it, which is what we have to deal with. Yes, that's right. Can you imagine if Germany had won the war? How the history would be totally different. No, scientific papers don't say that it was introduced. You're stating that it's man-made. Scientists and people that have done research for over 40 years state categorically on scientific peer-reviewed papers, Buttercup, that it certainly started because people were eating certain monkeys. So if all these peer-reviewed scientific reports collate together and none of them say it was made by John Smith in a lab, I would probably go with the peer-reviewed scientific papers studied with data. No, there are probably, you can't say that, Buttercup. That's just a wild statement. Peer-reviewed papers are bought and sold. If that was the case, I'd start doing scientific review papers and selling them. Be a good little thing to get into. Yeah, be safe, Jojo. I think there'll be a little bit of trouble for sure, but hopefully not too much. Well, it's like one of the funniest things, Monchichi. Remember when the tobacco industry did the scientific research into cancer related, and they come up with the answer, no, we've done all our research and it shows categorically cigarettes don't cause cancer. Do you remember that? Do you remember, you're old enough to remember when the doctor leaned forward on his desk and said, after a hard day's work in the office here, being a doctor, I like to smoke a Camel. So you're true there, Buttercup, follow the money. But yeah, cigarettes kill you. Obesity kills you. The one thing that annoyed me this week was one statement that Mr. Trump made. I didn't hear him make it, but I saw the report, and it's been confirmed he did say that, is that the reason why doctors have so many cases of COVID is because they get an extra $2,000. I mean, I can't believe how callous that statement is. All these frontline workers, doctors, surgeons, even just orderlies, nurses, and they're being accused of putting down on a death certificate COVID because they get $2,000. That's untrue. It's a lie. It's deflection in its essence. No basis of truth in that at all. And I can imagine a lot of doctors and nurses in America were pretty pissed off by that statement as they hold the hand of someone who can't have any family members with them as they pass away. No, you misunderstand what I said, Monchichi. I said Donald Trump accused doctors. Do you see the difference? Whether there's a bigger payment for someone for the death under COVID is totally different. But Trump's statement was doctors. You need to know the subtle nuances that he does in his statements. So every doctor in America and every nurse was basically accused of doing this for money. You don't understand the nuance? You need to read and listen to what he said, because it was wrong. Anyway, I hope all Americans at least vote. I don't care who you vote for. I hope they all go out today and vote, because that's how a democracy works. And I hope your vote's counted, and I hope it's not waylaid by lawyers and the court saying, well, it's 12 minutes late and we can't count that. Yeah, you need to understand, Scarlett. Again, I get you to listen carefully to what I'm saying. The statement by Donald Trump and the nuance that he put on it is that doctors get an extra $2,000. You need to listen to what I just said and understand that attack on the men and women on the front line of this virus have been accused of making money. They are Donald Trump's words, not mine. And the nuance of how he said it is very clear. Just go on YouTube, Scarlett. Listen to the statement that he makes. The accusation is firmly put at the hands of doctors that are making profit. Buttercup, you're old enough to remember, as I do, in the 60s, not only in America but in the UK, the riots, the racial discrimination, the war on race. Same in the UK as it was in America. At the moment, Buttercup, I believe America is back to the 1960s. No, doctors do not run hospitals, Monchichi. Hence the nuance of Trump referring to doctors making $2,000 for every COVID death is sick and basically an attack on their integrity. Someone can lie to you, but it may sound like a truth. And sometimes people believe it if it's told enough. Like the White House, Scarlett. Do you agree with the chief scientific officer from the White House this week who released one of the many achievements of Donald Trump during this presidency is ending the virus? That's what the statement came out as. One of the many achievements of Donald Trump's presidency was he ended the virus. Well, 1,000 people died yesterday in the US from the virus. 100,000 people contracted it. Where does the ending bit come in? Trump has done nothing for the virus. The White House has admitted. Meadows stood up and said, we're not trying to stop the virus, we're concentrating on the vaccine and any therapeutics we can get. That was a White House released statement from Meadows. Well, no, Lake, that's not true, because on the chief scientific paper released supporting the achievements of Donald Trump is that he ended the virus. Can you believe it? You don't need any group or people or undermining or some deep state to tell you that when someone dies in your family from the virus, that it's very real. My wife has lost her uncle in Germany to the virus. We met him when we were there. He was a healthy 68 or 70-year-old person. He was the youngest in the line, so he wasn't that old. But like I say, one of the outcomes to this election, if the Democrats win, is that all the law cases that are on hold at the moment, because there is immunity that a president has. You can Google that if you like, but it's true. But when the presidency ends, the immunity ends. And there are 17 litigations against him from different people. That's got nothing to do with his taxes, nothing to do with his business dealings. They are litigations that are in the civil court. And one will be in the criminal court. 17 that he loses immunity to. He can't not attend court when he's not president. Probably doesn't warrant shutting down the world, Buttercup, but it does warrant looking at countries that have been successful in the management of it and a path to get out of it. Do you remember when we discussed about 3 months ago when Boris said, we're going to open up to Spain and Italy again and blah, blah. And I told you that is the worst mistake that the UK could do. It is the worst decision. There was no control of the virus in any of these countries, and then they opened the airlines up. Where are you now? Well, what you can't deny, do you know a chap called Bob Woodward? I've followed him for years. Bob must be close to 80 years old now. And he had a meeting with Donald Trump, verified, on tape. Now these are the words of Donald Trump. He told Bob Woodward that this virus is not like the common flu. It's deadly, Bob, and it goes through the air and it can kill you. It's much more serious than the flu. They're Trump's words. Now, a couple of months later, he stood up and said, we'll all be holding hands at Easter in church. And this virus is nothing but a flu. First of all, he said it was a democratic hoax. So they're his words, not mine. He said it was deadly and dangerous, and yet he told the people it's just like the flu, it'll just go away. We're rounding the bend. We're rounding the bend. And now the chief scientific officer, I don't even know what that position would be in the White House, released a statement that the achievements of Donald Trump and his presidency is ending the virus. Do you know, if you were in a different part of the world at a different time, you'd call that propaganda. Who increases the fear more than anyone in the US, Buttercup? Think about it and honestly answer that question. Who raises the spectre of a fraudulent election? Who says all these terrible things? Then you get to know a picture. Well, in Australia, there is no fear, Buttercup. Follow what we did and you'll be right. The problem with politics is that a lot of people get their information, what just Scarlett put in, the media. That's it. If someone in the media they like says something, they believe it. It doesn't matter whether you're on an island or not. Japan is an island, Scarlett. There are plenty of countries that are islands that have had terrible outcomes in regards to the COVID-19 virus. Saying that we're protected because we're an island, it doesn't work. We had the virus, we locked down like you wouldn't believe. Essential workers kept going to work. Those that didn't have to work did not. And now we don't have a virus. I do not agree with what happened in Melbourne. I don't even know what that means, Buttercup. The fact is, 13 weeks ago there were 700 cases a day. Today there are 0. Follow the dotted lines, how they got there. Melbourne shut down. Districts around Victoria were under a different level of shutdown. But you know what, Buttercup? It worked. Sweden's turning out to be a nightmare. The chief medical officer of Sweden said, we made a mistake, and sacrificing the herd mentality was a terrible decision. Well, like I say, I don't argue with anyone, but I would suggest that Golden and the rest of you that believe this is just like the flu, go and sit in a wing of a hospital with COVID victims and tell them that it's all going to be okay. You won't do that because you're contrary to what your beliefs are. Anyone that believes this is not harmful or deadly, go sit down to a hospital where there are dozens of people with COVID-19 and tell them stories about how it's just a hoax and nothing's wrong. You'll be good in a couple of days. You'll be busy though, because in America 1,000 people die a day. You'll be run off your feet. Tell them how it's nothing to worry about. So if you want to look at the countries that have been, and I don't call it successful, but been effective in controlling and suppressing the virus, you just need to look at what they did. Don't have any hyperbole, don't have any sort of theories, just look at the facts of what they did. I don't think you ever, Golden, you won't ever eradicate it. I believe it'll be around for a very long time. But anyway, the most important thing for all Americans is to vote. Whatever your disposition is in regards to who it is, I don't care, but vote. Well, Buttercup, learning to live with it is one thing. Learning to control it through proven methods is another thing. When you do come to Australia, and you land here and you try and talk to people about how bad the virus was, they'll say, what? Don't know what you're talking about. We all shut down. We listened to the scientific officers, the data. We followed their instructions. Was it pain in the ass? Yep. But it worked. No, Buttercup, you just need to look at statistics. If you want to look at data, look at the normal. This is the best data that you could ever look at, Buttercup. Go to your own country, go to the US. Look at the nominal amount of deaths in the country each year, from whatever. Look at the nominal amount, the total amount. And then look at the figures of 2020. And then you wouldn't say anything. You'd be saying, well, nominal deaths mean all the country's deaths from being hit by a car, falling out of an aeroplane, dying from a virus, heart attack. And if you look at the figures over the last 10 years and you come to 2020, they are staggering. Like anything can kill us when we get old. People often forget that the common cold can kill you. If you're in a disposition where you have underlying medical conditions, the common cold can kill you. It's not that it cured the flu, it made social distancing a fact of living, Monchichi. And in Australia, we don't have the flu. Staggering. Well, you can't go down that route every time, Buttercup. As soon as you get a disagreement in someone's statement, you mention data has been manipulated. It's a convenient statement to make without any fact. Look at Victoria in Australia. I could talk about certain counties and territories in Seoul in South Korea or in certain parts of Vietnam and how they actually went about minimising, and it worked. So if I said to you in a logic statement, Buttercup, have a look at all these countries that have successfully suppressed, not removed the virus, suppressed it to a point that life is nearly back to normal. And if you said to me, all right, I'll go and look at that, and you can see what they did and the processes that they went through, then you wouldn't be making all this talk about data's been manipulated and whatever, when in fact, what works for one country will work for another country. It's just the country involved taking the decision to follow the route that other countries have been successful on. It's as simple as that. I would ask you, without being derogatory, Buttercup, just to concentrate on Victoria, Australia, because Australians are just like the Poms in many ways. They get pissed off when they're told to do things, you know what I mean? Same thing. But have a look at what they did, the process of where they got, and then understand that suppressing the data is not true. The data says that. So you believe your government. You're now making a conspiracy theory that I am now supporting everything that the government says. No, I never have. But facts about scientific research and the processes of suppressing the virus means that if something works, do it. Do you agree with me, Buttercup? If you followed in Wales alone the same process they followed in Victoria, that you would get the same result. Well, like I say, you've only got to follow how countries have been successful in suppressing the virus to understand there is a method. It does involve wearing masks, limiting your social distancing, and in some cases staying home if you're not an essential worker for a period of time, because like everyone keeps forgetting, every virus has a lifespan. And if you remove yourself and lock down, people hate hearing that word, lock down. Whoever's got it's got it, but they're not transmitting it to others. And that's how Victoria went from 700 cases a day 13 weeks ago to 0. Every virus morphs. The beauty, though, Scarlett, if you look into immunology, and virologists will tell you this, most viruses, 99% of viruses, actually get weaker because the virus wants to live. And if it's killing its damn host, you see where I'm going with this, Scarlett, the virus figures out, well, I'll have to make a different strain of myself so I don't kill them. Virus is not a living thing, it's a host that it requires. Viruses don't really go away. The common flu is the best example of that. It mutates all the time. Well, in your country, they don't do what we do in our country then, Monchichi. Because if you work for me, Monchichi, and I was paying you like $800 a week, and I had to tell you you needed to stay home for the next 4 weeks, I stopped paying you, but the government pays you $750 a week. You actually make more money. You don't need any fuel. You're not buying lunches around the local canteen while you're at work. So you actually make more money by staying home. And that's what they did in Australia. Yeah, Marie-Claire, I've got a feeling that you're not going to be too far off the mark. Maybe litigation may go a bit longer into 2021, but that's just my perception. Golden Phoenix states, but what about our rights of freedom and liberty being trampled? Let's put it this way. Let's say you, for 4 weeks, Golden, stayed home, social distance, only went to the shop essentially wearing a mask. And you looked in your local area after 4 weeks and saw that the virus was decreasing markedly. Now that allows, in the end, for you to have all of your liberty and freedoms restored. Do you know what I mean? So if you're not willing to do it for 4 weeks and you just want the virus to keep going, yeah, just keep telling people that it's an impediment on your liberty and freedoms. When in fact, the biggest impediment, Golden, is death. You don't get to have 4 weeks off when you're dead. It's a full-time job. Good statement, Buttercup. Once the government start using violence to control dissent, then you need to question why. What's happened over the last 6 months, Buttercup, in the US? I've looked at the responses in certain states in the US, Monchichi, And the problem is, there's a lot of autocratic mayors, governors that sort of contradict each other. In a certain state, you can have the mayor say he's not going to lock down. And then you can have the governor saying, well, we need to lock down. So there's no method. It's just all madness. Yeah, but Buttercup, if I was coming to your place to go to a local church to hold a Bible up, indicating my evangelical side, and to get to your church in Wales, that I actually got the riot police to tear gas, punch, injure people that were protesting, and I held up that Bible in a Wales church. Is that the right thing to do? I think it's very clear, like, that within, if not the full term of this first presidency under Biden, definitely the second, Kamala Harris will be the President of America. And what's wrong with a black American female president? Any objections in the room? Well, Monchichi, I would agree with you to the extent that there are 230,000 Americans that have no liberty or freedom at all. They're dead. Well, let's put it this way. A lady of colour, Scarlett, running the United States as president. Do you have any objections to that? I don't. I think it's a wonderful thing. Female president. No black card at all. I would be proud if I had a black Aboriginal Prime Minister. Because we are all equal. That's my point. No race card used at all. I'm not using her colour to shame. I'm saying what a wonderful thing it would be that the diversity of a nation allows for a lady of colour to be the president. It's not a race trick at all. Do you object? Let's put it this way. If there was an American Indian as President of the United States, would you have a problem with that? Just imagine Chief Joe from the, I don't know, Black Sox tribe becomes President of the United States. Exactly, Scarlett. I was waiting for someone to say that we've already had a black president. And it doesn't matter, does it? The colour of a man or woman's skin is irrelevant. Yes, Scarlett, I was waiting for someone who said, what about Barack Obama? There is no shaming going on, like, that's your perception. My point clearly is that I don't care what colour or creed a person is. If they're a good person and they're president, what's the point? It doesn't matter, the creed or colour of someone's skin. That's my point. I didn't imply, I said, do you have a problem with that? So you're turning around a question where I said, do you have a problem? And now you're saying I implied that you would have an issue. I said, do you have a problem with that? Your implication is actually a reverse of what I said. Because it's an issue in the United States at the moment, like racial wars, if you like, are simmering everywhere in the United States. Just like I said earlier about when I was a kid in the 60s, in the UK and the US and Australia, the racial division was terrible. But anyway, on a much somber note, let's be honest, we lost a great actor this week. I admired him my whole life. Sean Connery has left us. What a great actor he was. Let's be honest, one of the best. No, what I said, Monchichi, you need to listen carefully. I will clarify it again. Would you have an objection to that? I didn't state it as using a race card at all, because I don't care of a person's colour, gender. It doesn't bother me at all. Maybe you could have a transgender president. Any objections to that? See, like, you're turning this around to make it sound like I'm using a race card to make a point, when I simply asked the question, would you object? So it's your racism that stands out. I don't care what the colour of a person is. If they're a good person, I don't care what creed, colour, gender they are at all. Exactly. If they are qualified and can do the job, I don't care. There is no racism in the US, Scarlett says. I don't know where you're living, Scarlett. Listen carefully, Lake, because I think you're missing the point. What I said was, if a person of colour became the President of the United States, would you object to that? And I waited until about 8 or 9 minutes later. Scarlett said, but hang on, we've had one, Barack Obama. I was waiting for that to come up. It took a while. So Monchichi's saying she's not qualified to be president. Let me just put it this way, Monchichi. Is Ivanka Trump qualified maybe to be the president in the future? Really? Yes, female, black. That's all I said. Would you object to it? Of course, the answer should be no, you shouldn't object to it. Coronavirus is a common cold. I wish it was, Golden, but it's not. We have crawfish in Australia, but we call them yabbies. You get them in the UK too, believe it or not. They're infested in some of the rivers in the UK now. No, but she was at one stage seriously considered to be Vice President, Scarlett. Do you remember that? Ivanka will be more qualified. She is not going to see the light of day in any political field in the future, at all. I have a curiosity where all these, and I use the word deliberately, the sycophants that are behind Donald Trump, where are they going to be working? They can't all work at Fox. There's not enough jobs for them. But like I say, I've never seen a president appoint his family into the White House in positions in the numbers he has. Staggers me. It's called nepotism, and he admits to being a narcissistic, egotistic nepotist. They're his words. Fox has gone left. No, Scarlett. But anyway, if you could bear with me for one moment, I will repeat. Google the response to the COVID-19 virus in Victoria and see the mistakes they made and how they shouldn't have made those mistakes, but then look at the path they took to control it. If that's all you do today, and then you can come out with an outcome that says countries like Australia, South Korea, Vietnam, and many other countries did this on a methodical way. Well, I don't know how else you're going to do it, Buttercup. You can't fly to Victoria. We won't let you in at the moment. So that's all you can do. But you can go to the government website, or you can go to independent researchers' websites in Australia, and you can see how the virus went from out of control to being controlled. But if you don't want to look at that, and you want to stick in your own mind the theories you have, and that basically your liberty and freedoms are being impeached and everyone keeps dying around you, go ahead. But if you want to look at countries that have been successful in suppressing the virus, have a look. I googled your politics. It said that you elect and then they are removed by their peers. No, what happens in our political parties is that you run as, say, the incumbent Prime Minister and you have an opposition. What happens is people vote, and let's say the incumbent gets back. What he will do automatically is put a new bench. Otherwise, he'll go through all the people he's had in those positions, move them around, sacks up, put some new ones in. So the Prime Minister has the control of his front bench. It's the same in the UK. But what happens is that if a politician in their own party does something stupid or whatever, his own party will kick him out. It's like how it would happen if these politics were used in the US and the Republicans saw, we just don't want Donald anymore. If they had the same process we have in Australia, they have a vote and he's kicked out whilst serving his term. That's how it works here. Otherwise, if he's not doing a good job, his own party can remove him. That's how it works. It's called a vote of no confidence. Oh, so Buttercup quickly goes back to laughing at me about Googling and then says to Scarlett, you just need to investigate the control and manipulate on Google. Bad girl, Buttercup, bad girl. You can't have one each way. You either place a win or the place. But anyway, it's all be over shortly. Have a good day, wherever you're going. I'm going to go to bed. And if anything, whoever you want to vote for, at least vote. Because unless you vote, all you have is an opinion. And in my country, you have to vote, which is a good thing. But in America, you don't have to vote. But if you have a desire to see your country go in whatever direction, at least vote. I love that term, rhinos. Isn't that such a silly thing, Golden? If you don't agree with me, you're against me. Have a great day. Whatever happens, I hope it's the way you want it to happen. That's all I can say. And may America, once again, be united. Good night.